I rise to speak briefly about a bill that I have introduced. This is a bill that's about protecting our kids in schools, and as a father of 3 young kids, I share the feeling that I suspect every parent has. There is no higher priority than making sure our children are safe. We can't personally provide that security all day, everywhere, at all times. And so we want to make sure that the places our kids go are as safe as they can be. Our kids obviously spend a great deal of time at school, and we want our schools to be the safest environment that they can be. And it turns out there's more that we can do. And so I have a bill. It's a bill that I've introduced with Joe Manchin, Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia. It's a bipartisan bill, and it is going to help provide greater security for kids in our schools. Madam President, my immediate inspiration for introducing this bill came from a tragic story that originated in Pennsylvania. It's a story that begins at a school in Delaware County. One of the school teachers, it turns out, had molested several boys and had raped one. The prosecutors never felt like they had enough evidence to actually mount a case against him, but the school knew what had happened, and so they dismissed the teacher. But unbelievably to me, although they dismissed him, they also gave him a letter of recommendation that he could take with him as he applied, where do you think? To other schools, because that's what these predators do. They look to be in an environment where they can find more victims. That's exactly what this guy did, and he managed to get another teaching job in West Virginia. The story, this episode, ends in 1997 when that teacher, who by then was a school principal, raped and murdered a 12-year-old boy named Jeremy Bell. So justice has caught up with that teacher. He has since been apprehended, charged, tried, and convicted. He's now serving a jail sentence for the murder. But that all was too late for Jeremy Bell. Unfortunately, Jeremy Bell's story is not unique. I was at a YMCA in Chester County, Pennsylvania, just a few weeks ago. Our district attorney there, Tom Hogan, is the district attorney for Chester County, and he told me a very disturbing story. They're doing an investigation of the Coatesville School District for alleged financial mismanagement. That's what the investigation is about. But in the course of the investigation, they discovered that there are numerous school employees who are felons. Now, he couldn't reveal many details because it's an ongoing investigation, even now, but he was able to share one story. It's a story of a Victor Ford, who was an employee. He'd been convicted 3 times for felony drug dealing. 2009, he was hired as a special education classroom aide and a 7th grade boys basketball coach. 2010, he raped a young girl, not at the school. Later, he resigned from the school and has since pled guilty to corruption of minors. This is just appalling, and it is so completely unacceptable anywhere in America. So I've introduced a bill, and it's a bill that has broad bipartisan support. In fact, it's a bill that has passed the House unanimously. This should not be controversial. What it would do, it would insist that schools conduct proper criminal background checks for both existing and prospective employees, and that these background checks be repeated periodically. There are 5 states that don't require any checks at all, according to a GAO report. And my state of Pennsylvania requires it only for new hires, but never relooks at people who may have been working for the school for many years. Second thing that this bill does is it requires the background check for a criminal history be done for any employee who's going to come into contact with kids. So not just teachers, but it could be a coach, could be a contractor, it could be anybody who's going to interact with children. There are 12 states that have no such provisions. And it would also require a more thorough background check. Some states check their own state's database for criminal activity, but they don't look at the FBI's database. They don't look at a national record of criminality. Our bill would require that. It would forbid knowingly passing on a letter of recommendation to a predator. It is shocking that that even has to be contemplated, but since it has occurred And sometimes there is this feeling that, well, let's just make the problem someone else's problem. It does happen. It's outrageous and appalling. It needs to be forbidden. And our bill would do that. And it also would preclude the possibility of hiring people ever convicted of a violent sexual crime against a child, whether that's a misdemeanor or a felony, and a number of other violent felonies, including homicide, child abuse or neglect, crimes against children, including pornography, other serious crimes, and other felonies if they had been committed within the previous 5 years. The enforcement mechanism basically is to withhold federal funding for schools in states that refuse to do an appropriate check to make sure our kids are safe. So, Madam President, I think this is just common sense. It has broad bipartisan support. Again, I want to thank Senator Joe Manchin for being my co-sponsor on this legislation. It's called the Protecting Students from Sexual and Violent Predators Act. It's S 1596. Again, it passed the House unanimously. But I think this is more than just a piece of legislation. This is a moral imperative. There's something we know we can do to make our schools safer for our kids, and I think we should just do that. So I'm engaged in discussions with some of my colleagues. I should hope that this would not be controversial. It's my hope that we will soon get to the point where we can pass this by unanimous consent or hotline this so that we can get this done. As I said, it's already passed the House. As soon as we pass this bill, it will go to the President and it'll be signed into law. So, Madam President, I hope my colleagues will join me in this effort and we'll be able to get it done soon, and I yield the floor.